All right. Now joining the show, we've got on Christopher Saunders, the host of the CT Sports Talent Show podcast. Chris, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Home on winter break right now, so banging out as many interviews as I can. During the school year and especially football season, it's a lot tougher. But so past few weeks have been very interview heavy, which I love doing. So it's been a fun past few weeks.
Well, I appreciate you being able to have me on. And when you sent me the DM and offered, for me to come on, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? This should
Yeah,
be
yeah.
fun.
Now, one quick question: how did you come up with CT Sports Talent Show? I think that's a pretty cool podcast name. It's not. I think it's tough when you're coming up with a name for a show. You don't want it to be cheesy or corny, and you don't want it to be very generic where people will forget it. CT
Hmm.
Sports Talent Show is, I think, a pretty cool one. So, what was the thought for that? Did it just kind of pop in your head one day, or was there a little work put into it?
Well, what's funny is that when the pandemic, okay, so to go back a little bit,
Mhm.
when the basketball tournament was canceled, when the CIAC
Yep.
canceled boys and girls basketball for the playoffs in the state tournament, I was prior to that cancellation, I had a plethora of games that I was planning on covering.
Yep.
Naugatuck, I was going to be following Sacred Heart as well, who now we know that they closed last year.
Yeah.
Their last game was at Alumni Hall and they won against Naugatuck in the NBL tournament.
That's right.
So when I found out that, think about it, games were being canceled, seasons were being canceled, and it's like everything's happening at once. And it was, as a sports guy as yourself is, and as am I, we crave the information. We want to be able to talk to people and
Yep.
get the relationships. And I said, you know what? I have a Mac. I can record. I
Mhm.
have Zoom, and I was still trying to get familiar with Zoom. And I was like, you know
Yep.
what? Let's start up a podcast. And then I was thinking, Connecticut has always been looked at as a state in a lot of eyes because I've traveled all around the Northeast, so I know and I talk to people. Some people don't, I think, respect Connecticut as
Yeah.
much because of for whatever reason. And I was like, you know what? CT Sports Talent because Connecticut stands for Connecticut Talent,
Yeah.
CT, Connecticut Talent. So
I
I know
like
it's
that.
cheesy, but
I like that. And I completely agree with you. Going to school in Mass, it's a lot of the guys that I play with are South Shore guys or Boston guys, and it's they'll constantly just shit on other, not even just Connecticut, but just other states. And when me and my friends from Connecticut will look at it, we're like, well, we've got probably the best lacrosse state in New England, best wrestling, best one of the, I mean, basketball talent is ridiculous. It's very underrated for football. It just when it comes to comparing, it's tough to beat out those schools that they always bring up, like BC High or Zavarian Brothers and Mass. So when you got to compare it to that, it's tough when it comes to football. But other sports, I mean, it's really, I think, top tier. Kind of all around the state too. It's tougher when you get out east or out west. There's not much going on, but I mean, when you hit that southern part or Hartford County or the NVL, it's loaded with talent. I think when it comes to pretty much all sports.
there's talent everywhere. I mean, speaking of the NBL with basketball,
Mhm.
the NBL has been known for years as being kind of the grassroots as far as being able to get some of the best talent. I mean,
Yeah,
Anthony Ireland was on those Crosby teams in the late 2000s with Nick Algelli, who's been there for over 40 years. I mean, he
yeah,
just coached his 1,000 game, I think, last week.
crazy.
It's one of those things where if you want to find talent, I'm not saying that obviously there's talent in the CCC. I mean,
Yeah,
I think they have 4 or 5 teams in the game time top 10. Then
mhm.
the SWC with Kobe Cathedral. You go to the ECC. St. Bernard is having a fantastic season. NFA is doing very,
Yeah.
very
NFA is
well
a
with
team that's
their.
always deep.
Yeah, exactly. They're always deep. So there's talent everywhere. The NVL is just familiar to me because
Mhm.
I've been there since I started broadcasting in the NVL. But there's
Yeah,
talent all over the state.
yeah. Funny story. We Enfield played NFA one year down at NFA. So one of my best friends was on the team. We take the trip down there. I mean, we're like, this is a big one, double L matchup. This is gonna be a great game. And NFA just came out, lit them up, hit like 25 threes. Just they weren't missing. And at one point, Enfield calls a timeout. My buddy looks up in the bleachers. He's like, just gives a shrug. And we'd never seen a team shoot like that. So that was the team we followed through that whole year, through that whole tournament, just because they played out of their mind. And I don't know if that was just one night, but watching them just shoot lights out was ridiculous. It was fun to see. It was good basketball, but it was not great to be on the losing end of that.
I don't know if you remember a couple years ago when Enfield played against Career Academy at Kennedy High School, and
Yep.
they had one of the best players in the state at the time in Marquand Watson.
Mhm.
And I was surprised how it was such a low scoring game. And a lot of people were thinking that Career Academy, because I was at the game, I wasn't
I was there
broadcasting.
too. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you were there? Okay.
Yep.
So, and a lot of people, because I try to talk to as many people as I can, and a lot of people were telling me, oh, what's the over under? Is it like a 30-point spread, in favor of Career?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I feel like, you never want to doubt the teams that are outside the NVL because they play a different schedule. And Enfield, they just didn't have the horses as far as scoring, but they kept a pretty good athletic Career team. Low scoring. I think it was under like 40 points, 50 points. So
it was, I think, like 45-39 the final, something in that range. But like you said, it was you really saw the athletic difference down the stretch and really the bench depth down the stretch when it came to both those teams. Because Enfield it was really 5 guys and not a deep bench. And Career, they were able to go into the bench and have some of their guys come in and play real good defense and give their better players a big rest that they needed in a physical game like that, which was, I think, the big difference maker.
I agree with that.
That was definitely, it was a disappointing game to be at because, it's another hike out there from Enfield. And you watch some of your friends lose, and losing in a low scoring one's always tough because you always go back and think, if I just hit 1 or 2 more shots, then we win that game. It's not like this big 80-point game. It's a low scoring one, and it was a fun one. I love physical basketball, so I enjoyed it. But yeah, that was a great game. It was a fun one to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So when it comes to Connecticut high school football, and I brought up before we started talking, kind of correlates with UConn. The great UConn teams that were coached by Edsel that first time around were very heavily Connecticut recruited. You had great players from the NVL, from the CCC, a lot of guys coming out of Windsor, Connecticut, and from the southern part of the state. Dan Orlovsky is probably the biggest name, or maybe not the biggest name, but one of the most famous coming out of UConn football. And what was, for you, that correlation between the two? How much do you think that helped the state of Connecticut boost their name for high school football when UConn was good with Connecticut guys on the roster?
I think it helped immensely because, in talking with, obviously, because, I have the opportunity to be able to talk to a lot of coaches, both at the high school and college and pro route, and especially the upper echelon guys, they tell me when they're recruiting, if they can't keep guys within their own backyard from leaving and going to other schools. I mean, prime example, I go to the college route. You had Alabama's quarterback is from California.
Yeah.
Now, why is he leaving the state of California? Because he felt like there was a better opportunity. And the reason why I bring that up is because you have to keep kids. And I'm not saying that you have to keep every single player, because obviously players have different, the majors, sometimes they just want to leave Connecticut. Respect. But I think who was it? Somebody tweeted out that it was the first time since 2000, maybe 2001, 2003, that Connecticut kept not just the New Haven registered top player,
and
which
the
was
Gatorade
Cam Edwards. Yeah. And also kept Victor Rosa, who is from Bristol Central. Cam Edwards is from Norwalk, and he was the Gatorade Player of the Year. So for Connecticut to keep those two, plus they got a player from Windsor and sprinkle in some other guys, it's a very good step for them right now. As far as, it's not, obviously, it's going to take a couple years. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
But for them, it's a positive step. Now you have people excited, which, let's be honest, people have not been excited about UConn football probably since Etzel's first, go around with UConn. Yeah. That's no disrespect to the coaches after.
No, but it's the truth. I mean, there was never a buzz like the one they had when they were going into that Tostitos Bowl. A team with Donald Brown on it who was just a great back. I mean, you had a pretty loaded roster with guys from that tri-state area, from Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York. And it made it fun to watch. And when Edsel left in the way that he did also, which, I think a lot of fans never forgave him for the way he left when he came back for the second go round. Especially me, I'm one of them. And the recruiting really hurt because teams like Michigan were able to build a pipeline in Penn State. And then you had the best prep players leaving to go play college ball in the SEC. Like Josh Joby came up and played at Cheshire Academy for a year, was committed to Miami, and then went to Alabama. Granted, he's probably a better player than he should be at UConn. I mean, he's going to get drafted this year, but to not make a legitimate run at guys like that. And we had Will Levis on the show a few months back. He brought up UConn never really gave him a call until Penn State gave him his offer, and he had offers from North Carolina at that point. They came very late to the party, and if you want to keep those best players, you need to get on them very early, their sophomore year, and kind of take away that option for them to go out of state to the Big Ten or to the Big 12 or the SEC. You need to wrangle in the best players from the state and keep them around.
No, I agree with you. And I think to add to what you just said, and you said it very, very well, man. Another thing too is because let's be honest, guys want to have an opportunity if they're going to college, like Division I, even Division II, Division III, obviously to get their degree, but also too if they have an opportunity to be able to get drafted. Yeah. There's a player who's actually from the NVL who plays for Anna Maria and has an opportunity because I was talking to their now head coach and Coach Kroos, who's a former NVL guy, head coach at Holy Cross for a number of years. Yeah. I think his name is Jude Sampson from Kennedy. Yeah. He has a chance to get drafted. And he said that. I'm not thinking that. He said that. And that's what made me follow it. These players in Connecticut want to find a way to be able to get themselves an opportunity for a shot at the NFL. Mm-hmm. And if UConn can show like they are a pipeline, not saying that they weren't a pipeline before, they had some guys. But with Edsel, I mean, there was a point where Connecticut was producing, I think they had the most guys in the NFL at one point, if per capita. Yeah. According to what I read, a little while ago. And also Coach Kroos told me that as well. So if UConn can show that, that is honestly, yes, wins and losses are important. But if you can get guys to the NFL, that's the biggest attraction for getting kids in the state.
Yeah, yeah. And that was a tough thing. Like you said, when Edsel left, that kind of dropped off a little bit. I mean, you had your big name guys like a Byron Jones make it to the league. Yep. I think he was under Diaco, which I still think was a very quick and tried to make that quick fix hire. And he was very rah-rah, and it felt kind of fake to me the way he did it, especially with the civil conflict, which was taken as a joke from UCF. Which was, me and my dad laugh about it every year when that game comes up. We joke about that. But if Mora is able to push these guys to the league and, go from undrafted free agents and seventh rounders to mid-round guys. I mean, it looks like a guy like Travis Jones might even be a second rounder after his after his week at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, Travis Jones could really be the first step in bringing more recruits in if he gets drafted, and he wasn't even a Mora guy. So that would be awesome. And like what Mora's been doing on social media, I think will be a pretty big boost for UConn football. He seems very engaged in the program and really wants to make it work. At least that's what the public eye looks like.
No, I agree with you. Again, it's one of those things where social media could be your best friend or your worst enemy. And, to the credit of Mora, also to, I think another very not sneaky hire, because I always thought he was going to be a coach somewhere at a top, 5 school amongst the Power 5. But the former coach at Greenwich, who now decided to come back home. And, I think, and he was around too. He was at Arizona. Yep. He was at Illinois, I think, with Brett Bielema for a short time for about a year. But for him to want to come back, and it seems like just, again, I follow him on social media, always pumping out Connecticut. He was making the rounds. I mean, he knows the state better. I mean, no disrespect to Mora, Coach Mora. Right. He knows the state more because obviously he coached here. He knows Connecticut high school football. And also, too, he still has connections because of being a former coach. Yeah. Being in the FCAC and being able to – he saw some of the best players. So for him, it's kind of like a cheat code in a way because – he has those abilities to kind of shorten the distance for Mora to be like, hey, here's the coach from Norwalk, Coach Miller, here you go. Here's his number. Connect him on some kids that he has. There you go.
Yeah, no, especially with Marinelli being not too far removed from Connecticut high school football. I think he was last there in 2019 when they won the state championship. And like you said, he coached some of the best players in the state, like Mozabici. And having that connection with that southern part of the state is going to be huge because those guys can easily leak out to the Big Ten and the SEC. And, Michigan, after their big run, is very appealing, and especially with the pipeline they built up in Connecticut. Penn State will always have that lore of playing under the whiteout. I mean, that's one of the best atmospheres in college football, and kids always want to play under that. So getting fans excited about UConn football I think will bring that atmosphere back to the Rent, and one that kids will want to play under. I mean, I was at games in between the Edsel era and now where we would walk up and get $10 tickets and see them play Tulane, and we're in the lower bowl with like 2,000 other people. And it was disappointing to see. I want to see UConn football do good, but when you're not bringing in the right guys and you're trying to bring in 2-star guys from Texas versus 3 or 4-star guys from Connecticut, that's where you're going to get the result that you got eventually. And that's, it came to a head, and hiring Mora doesn't feel like that Diaco hire where it's a quick fix. It seems like they'll have all their eggs in the Mora basket for at least 4 or 5 years. And hopefully that builds up. And I think a good thing Mora did was he recruited a lot of JUCO guys and 5th-year transfers from Ivy League schools to kind of win now, but he's also been recruiting on the back end and bringing guys to develop for 4 years to make them a win now and also a win down the line team, which is a really smart move. You don't see that a lot in a full rebuild.
No, I'm with you on that. I think for Mora to go the JUCO route, because obviously JUCO, and you see that in basketball as well, where a first-year coach will kind of take guys in who, if they're just getting out of JUCO or just looking for an option, the 5th-year guys, it's always good to get the guys who've been around for a couple of years, the veterans who, can kind of lead the team and maybe help, because let's be honest too, the coaches can only do so much. If the players aren't buying in, then they're not going to believe what, no matter who's the coach that they're selling. So to get the veterans to kind of help the young pups, kind of show them how to prepare for a game, because let's be honest, these kids are very, very talented at the high school route here in Connecticut. It's a lot different compared to, now, granted, preparing for Greenwich and Windsor is one thing, but even the worst teams in college football are better than the high school teams. I'm just being honest. So to have those older players to help guide the young pups, the Victor Rosas, the Cam Edwards, I can go on and on and on. It's going to help their development. And I think, again, I don't want to say that if UConn won 2 games that there wouldn't be, like, everybody be jumping for joy. I think if UConn could win 5, 6, I think it would be massive. It'd be great. If they make a bowl game, you might as well make a statue for Mora. Seriously. I think for them, it's just get some, because right now everybody's excited for UConn football. They haven't been like that in some time.
No. And that's a really good point you brought up with Rosa and like the young guys coming in is guy like him. He was playing every position at Bristol Central, had an unreal amount of all-purpose yards. So for him to kind of step in to UConn and get under the wing of some of the older guys to kind of just know that you're going to be playing one position, you don't have to do everything, will definitely be big. And that's, I think, a big switch from high school to college. Is a lot of guys that were studs at the high school level might think that it's going to be the same at the college level where, I'm the star, I'm going to do what I have to do to win games. But in reality, you don't have to do that. You just have to do your job and do enough to help your other teammates out to win games. And that'll be a big thing with bringing in veteran 5th-year guys and junior college guys that have been in the circuit and worked with, they know what college football is all about.
And especially too with Rosa, I mean, people may forget Rosa committed to UConn before Mora was there. So for him to stay there and really and I know, I talk to Rosa from time to time. He went through the process. He's a very mature young man. His family is great. They support him obviously through and through. I know they didn't push him wherever he wanted to go. They were going to support him. But for him to stay there after going through the necessary process and stay committed shows that, okay, if you can keep a kid like that here,
Yeah.
that is a trickle down effect, because Bristol Central is one of those, it's not a town, but it's like I call it like a mini city
Yeah. Yeah.
where there's a lot, like there's so much, they have a player in Hickey who,
Yes.
Nathan Hickey, who is at Yale right now, and
Yep.
he's probably going to own a $5 billion company one day because he's just wicked smart.
Mhm.
Bristol Central produces so much, and so does Eastern too. Both those schools produce so much talent. That's one spot that you could go to and find a diamond in the rough.
Right.
And there's there's other schools too, just like that here in Connecticut.
And again, going back to Rosa with the mature pick of, you know, kind of staying with UConn, he had other offers that were to very impressive schools. He had a handful of Ivy Leagues like Columbia and Dartmouth, along with the service academies like Navy. I believe he had an offer from Air Force. I'm not sure if he had Army. I mean, those are, when you're looking at it, very tough to turn down because of the job opportunities when you're out of it. Granted, your opportunity to go to the NFL is a little bit lower when you go to the service academies,
Mm-hmm.
and having to serve after could be a deterrent for some kids. But to not to stick at UConn, and stay to his roots is a huge thing. And if you get guys with his same mindset of wanting to play in state and make UConn football better and bring it back to where it was when Edsel was first here, that's the step in the right direction, and it's an exciting one.
And that's the lure, I think, that Mora and the staff of UConn, I think that is such, because let's be honest, kids in Connecticut, not knowing how kids are in other states, just knowing from Connecticut, because I talk to them, I know you talk to them, we all do it. The media, I think they play with a little extra chip because they're in the Northeast. In baseball, they're not playing year round. They have to fight and claw just to get on the, like Mazzucato from East
Yeah.
Catholic. He was a basically unknown, a UConn commit through and through, and then he had one of the best seasons that high school baseball has ever seen. And then he was picked, I think, number 6 by Kansas City.
Yeah.
Now making millions. And kids in Connecticut, and he's just one example where they fight and they claw and they have something to prove. And I just feel like that's kind of the golden ticket for every one of these kids that Mora and the rest of the staff can go, like, you could change this program around here in Connecticut. The base of Connecticut could bring UConn back to relevance again in college football. And I think that is something where a lot of these kids in Connecticut are like, yeah, I want to be a part of that, because if you do that, you will be not a hero, because I think hero is for obviously the first responders and for firefighters, especially because of the COVID pandemic. But amongst the sport people who follow it, you will be heroes.
Definitely. And I do think it's an interesting thing with how Mora built his staff. You kind of see it a little bit at UMass, the way that Don Brown built his staff and the way UMass kind of went about it, because UMass brings in, a guy that's had success elsewhere. He's a respected coach, and Mora had good success in the NFL. And then Don Brown brings in guys that either A, he's worked with in the past, or B, local high school coaches. Like he brought in the Springfield Central head coach, I believe is now the tight ends coach. So when you do that, you really open up your roots to recruit in the state and keep the best talent around, which, it all comes back to that. It is the most important thing. And like you said, I do agree with that chip on the shoulder. You get disrespected enough as a state and as a sports state that eventually guys are going to start balling out more and more and working a lot harder. So that's definitely the awesome thing about it.
Yeah, talent's here, man. It's here.
Chris, I know you got to run. One last question before you go. Definitely with your job, I'm assuming you're doing a lot of traveling. What is give me kind of your pre road trip, pre going somewhere itinerary? What are you listening to? What is your gas station stop? What are the snacks that you are grabbing to get yourself from point A to point B? What's that all look like? Because everybody's got a different either ritual or maybe change it up, but everybody does this. They stop at a Cumbies and throw either their Spotify or Apple Music on and kind of lock in.
Well, it's funny because other than getting gas, I usually don't get anything at a gas station. I typically bring something with me, either my jug or I'll bring like a protein shake. And
Yep.
then on Spotify, I'm a heavy country / rap guy, so I'll listen to like Travis Scott, Blake Shelton, and then also for podcasts, I love The Herd. I try to watch that if I'm not between my full-time job and broadcasting. If I have a chance, I'd love to be able to catch The Herd. Like today, I missed it, but Colin Coward. Also, First Things First, I watch in the morning before I go to work. Podcasts are some of the best things, and I love the fact of what you're doing. Podcasts are great because it allows people to see different voices, different perspectives, and not the same cut and dry, same person over and over. Like I know I mentioned The Herd, but that's a big time sports show.
Yeah.
There's other podcasts, there's other shows out there that if you don't like his, listen to some, and that's the beauty of podcasts. You have different shows that you can listen to. If you don't like this one, you can go to that one, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on. Definitely want to talk to you again down the line. Maybe around tournament time for UConn basketball, or definitely down the line when UConn football is getting ready to start and the high school season is going to start. But I appreciate you coming on. Make sure you guys go listen to the CT Talent Show podcast. Is that YouTube? Is that on all platforms?
It's just on YouTube, and then I post it all over my social media as well.
Great. So make sure you check that out on YouTube. And thank you for listening to this episode of the My Parents Office podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes we'll be dropping this upcoming week.